simplified. I think that's also important because if I talk about with reference to Indian market, it's a big market. Even if you do anything, refine your processes, do the research, how to make the process simplified will make your venture bigger and larger as on today.
Thanks, Sushil. Well, Sushil touched upon, he nipped the bud. You have the idea, and there is always this pendulum. There's always this duality in the mind of a founder. Whether to share the idea, to check its validity, or whether to hide it. You see, we are in a mode where before we sneeze, we want to sign an NDA with someone, okay? So that's one side of pendulum where people are extremely conscious about sharing an idea with someone. On the other side is that if you don't share the idea, you don't validate it, you end up, in a crash. So my question to Vic is that how do we nip the bud, and what is the kind of right balance in this duality? One side, don't share the idea, it'll get stolen. On the other side, share the idea and make sure that you are not ending up in a crash.
Thanks, and I think this is a very controversial kind of a topic that a lot of people have asked before, and there's no right or wrong answer. I think it has to be a mix of two things primarily. And one of the values that we also have in GT Bharat is assume positive intent. I think that's a way of life. I've seen two types of people. One is who will always have a negative viewpoint about disclosing his idea, talking to people. Just taking a very stupid example, people lie about their CTC to their friends, right? So you've seen those kind of people also. And what can the other guy do if you tell him the truth? People don't want to disclose anything about their life, about their ideas, what are they doing. And the other type of people are who are transparent, straightforward. You'll see these people more confident, and they are now mature and also abiding by this value of assuming positive intent. That the other person is not here to harm me in any which way. However, you don't need to be stupid enough to just go public with your idea also. It has to be in a closed room with the right people, talking to the level of, to the extent that you're not disclosing the recipe or the secret. But till the time you don't tell the kind of value you can create, no one's gonna really take you seriously also. So it's a right balance. So if you have to describe your venture and the competitive advantages in 20 bullet points, you have to just state the top 5 in front of the investor. If your business model has 10 recipes of success, you have to state the top 3. And ultimately, the other person will know that this guy is telling me enough for my confidence to be driven, and he's assuming positive intent. And if the guy is a part of the same ecosystem of people who assumes positive intent, he will go forward with you. So my belief as a professional also is that the kind of people, the kind of person you are, you attract your kind even more. So if you have an investor who's very different in mindset as compared to you, let's say you are a guy who will take baby steps towards growth. I won't name clients, but there's a client of mine who started his venture back in 2013. He's still not a unicorn. He does a turnover of about 500 crores and he is EBITDA positive. He is in no hurry of becoming unicorn. He said, it's fine, I'm running a profitable business, right? So if my valuation is $300 million also, I'm okay with it. And we work very closely. And there are other kinds of people who want to burn through investors' money to just get a tag of a unicorn also. If you are that guy, find that kind of an investor. If you are type 1, find your kind of, his investors also have patience. And I'm touching upon the subber part also. The investor has patience, the person has patience. He has significantly scaled up his business and made it profitable, and he's in a happy zone right now, as compared to a guy who's under pressure after becoming a unicorn, that where are the profits, where are the profits? He's having sleepless nights, and this guy is happy at a $500 million valuation. I would also like to touch upon 2 aspects, and this is specifically talking to startup founders. I think some people don't understand or clearly understand the concept of demand and latent demand, okay? Demand is, let's say you're starting a t-shirt manufacturing company. Okay, you know the demand, you can model it out, you know the market size, you know everything. Black कितना बिकता है, white कितना बिकता है, Mickey Mouse वाला कितना बिकता है, बच्चों का, बड़ों का, you will find everything. There are databases, right? You will, latent demand is of a product that does not exist. You're assuming a demand. Like when Uber started, it was assuming how many people will click a button and call a cab where they're standing, right? So when you are modeling, if your startup is in the latent demand category or primarily in the latent demand category, things become very gray. How much to share, what not to share, how are you, and the less you share, the more he will question your forecasts. If you don't share enough and that product does not exist in the system in any country in the world, or maybe for sure in India, he will question you so much. And that's I think the path that you're walking is very treacherous there. So those are the people who really need to take this very, very seriously on what to share, what not to share, assume positive intent, and make sure that you are sharing enough for him to get confidence. If you are in the demand category, the product exists, you are doing something different in an existing market. You know, you're making a different type of drone, you're making a different type of delivery service, you're making, so there is a friend who runs a hiring startup who has made it a tech platform driven thing. You can calculate demand very easily. So that's where sharing is easier, understanding is easier. So the more it's gray, the more important this becomes. So those will be my suggestions.
Thanks, Vic. So he touched upon a important element. You attract people just like you. So there's an old saying, "Udte ko udta mile." If you're flying, you'll meet other people who are flying, right? So I turn on to Dr. Maurya. Dr. Maurya, patents. Your university is known to be one of the biggest and the foremost in patents. Talk about it as to when we are talking about Khabar, there is a large database of existing patents which are already there. So how should entrepreneurs approach that? How can they do some secondary research? So one is like the primary research. So Vic talked about primary research. You go to the market. Sushil talked about go to meet people, right? But the value of secondary research is also extremely important. There's a large database and you can do stuff, and especially for people who are wary of sharing their ideas, secondary research is an excellent mode in which you can go. So if you can talk a little bit about that aspect of, Khabar.
Right now in this panel, or otherwise also, disruption is a buzzword these days. And it was just, I think, 5 or 6 years down the line when I had to go to Indonesia for a conference. That is where they lack. So we also are focusing upon working in cross-functional areas, wherein if we have a startup, we prefer that the student should be from all domains, whether it is engineering, business, and so on, so they actually are able to convert it into a good business ideas. And eventually this incubation which we have within the campus also focus on having a lot of meetings with the students, with the founders and the investors, so that some of the incubators also are able to see the day of the light. Thank you.
Great. Excellent. So we move.
Important term. It needs to be understood a bit more deeply. People say that, this is a risky business. But what are the assessment criterias of it being risky? Is it risky from a customer side? There are no customers, you'll have to create demand. Or is it risky from a competitive side that isme reliance aa gaya to fir meko fail kar dega? Is it risky from a geopolitical standpoint that it's an export oriented business and we sign an FTA we have an FTA with Vietnam और वहाँ से सारे influx of products आ जाएंगे? There can be different types of risks. Geopolitical है, competitive है, demand है, funding है, it's a burning business. Ultimately funding stop हुई तो business बंद हो जाएगा. So as the minister was also saying that what can make me fail, uska list is far more important than what can make me succeed. And a lot of businesses have failed because of pretty stupid things, which frankly today can be negated right at the start. And I'll take an example, here of a failed business, and nothing against them, but I'm just saying that let's talk about Kodak. Everyone would have seen this, that they knew that there is a digital camera coming, they had the technology, but they were complacent. कि अगर मैंने ये launch कर दिया तो मेरा वो camera reel वाला business fail हो जाएगा. And someone else launched it and wiped them out. So when you know information, don't hide under the carpet. कि ये नहीं होगा, मैं पॉजिटिव हूँ, नहीं होगा तब तक मैं ग्रो कर जाऊँगा जब तक ये होगा. लेकिन जिस दिन वो हो गया, the pipe is closed, they close the knobs, they say no more funding boss, now you're on your own, and that's the slow decline towards your death kind of a thing of a startup. So assess all the risks right at the start. It's all available, it can be done. If you want to hire consultants, hire them. There are boutique consulting firms who work with startups at lower fee rates. They do this day in and day out, only risk assessments, you know, and they can give you a report which is a 10 slider which will go a long way in making your startup more sustainable, because then you can present it to the investors that, you know, I identified these risks, these are the mitigation mechanisms, I've put in some money there, and once you give me the funds, I'll put in more money in risk management. Because that's what the investor needs to know, that, you know, one fine day, you know, the media won't wipe you out or competition won't wipe you out, and so on and so forth. And some examples of, you know, when Urban Ladder got sold, I was so sad. You know, such a great startup, such good furniture designs. I thought one day it will compete with IKEA, but it got sold for a tiny sum. And it still exists, but it's a part of a larger group, because they did not see all the risks coming together and just breaking their business down at one fine day. And that's what I would say. It's the information is available. Do the risk assessment, hire consultants, they can help you out and break up your risks in certain categories, make a list, put the mitigation plan and the investment required to mitigate it in a time-bound manner, and you can drive investor confidence.
So Vic, hold on to these thoughts, because these are pretty important in the next part of our presentation and discussion with GTM. Dr. Maurya, would you like to add anything on Jigar? Appetite for risk.
No, I was listening to Mr. Vicky, and just to add on to, he quoted an example of Kodak. And similarly, we have a lot of other examples, whether it is Netflix, right? When Netflix came in business, Blockbuster was out of the business. And definitely one of the other aspect, I was reading an article in Forbes yesterday, and it has a very, very important point that, which I really liked. Itself, the point was that self-disruption should not be self-destruction, right? At times we have ideas for our own product, right? As he was talking about Kodak, right? They thought that if they'll go into digital camera, they might lose out on their business of the other cameras. So the same thing happened with Apple also. So they worked on this strategy that self-disruption should also be looked into. So what would have happened if they would not have launched iPhone, right? When they launched iPhone, they thought that their iPods will be out of business. But gradually they learned that as they were able to sell a large number of iPhones, definitely the profit which they derived from iPhone was far from the loss which they incurred because of the business that they were getting from iPod. So this is one of the aspects which the companies should look at, that you should always keep on innovating, right? And when you might add new feature to your product like Apple does. So it is not just about thinking whether, you know, adding new feature will be destructive to my existing product, right? So there is no limit to what kind of needs a customer can have. So it's just about converting that particular idea into reality and look into how it can help in fulfilling the customer need.
Thank you.
not go to the Citibank website, but go to Cred, pay it, and I get, on a 10,000 rupee payment, I get a 10 rupee cashback, which I don't care about, but it's convenience what I care about. Some people might care about 10 rupees, some people might care about convenience, but how's Cred making money? So the ideas presented in the longer stage were that the payment space in India has matured. I'll tell you Cred's story, which might have been presented. I don't know the founder, and that's the disclosure. I'm just telling you the story that would have been presented, and you can bring your story at the idea to the future using this example in your pitches also. You are starting a startup in a country where almost everyone who can have a payment mode on their phone already has it. Someone is using Paytm, MobiKwik, there are hundreds of payment gateways, PayU, and so on and so forth, right? And you are saying, मैं इधर जाके disrupt करूँगा. How will you be able to do that? You can't, the customer acquisition cost, which is a big metric, you will have it the highest because these people, Paytm तो अभी वो जूता polish करा के भी आप 20 रुपए दे सकते हो उसको, वो भी QR code लेके बैठा हुआ है. So it has reached to that level, and Cred is saying नहीं मैं करूँगा. So the whole story was what Cred wanted to solve for itself as a problem is that how do I make the customer acquisition cost the least? So it found a convenience that does not exist. The ultimate objective was Cred was to become a payment gateway, which it is right now, and a shopping site, which it also is right now, with all your credit card numbers stored there so that you just need to remember the CVV and make the payment. That's the convenience it had to drive 2-3 years down the line, which is driving today. So those are the future ideas that he already had, and he had the solution as the starting point that I will make sure that I drive convenience of credit card payments, and all your credit card numbers, if you have 10 of those, are saved with me. Cred takes like 3 seconds to make the credit card payment, right? So, and then you can play a slot machine game, and I pass it on to my daughter. Frankly, she plays the slot machine for the next 1 minute, and she's also happy. It's a good family time making payments after I get my salary. So, that's what Cred has done. It has made credit card payments fun. And now your credit card numbers are stored. It became a payment gateway. It became a shopping site. If something is available at the same price on Cred, all my credit cards are saved. I will not like to enter a 16-digit number on any other website. And that's what Cred did as the step one. And it reached where it is. And those were, maybe there were like 50, and I'm sure there are more 15 things coming in the pipeline because it has created that base. Paytm created that base by mobile recharges. कि 10 रुपए के recharge पे 10 रुपए का cashback. So, but the long-term story was the Paytm mall, which of course unfortunately failed, but the long-term story was to become the largest payment gateway in the country and then go global. Zomato started with the menu, a scanned photo of the Zomato people used to roam around the road clicking pictures of menus and uploading. And the long-term story was food delivery, restaurant booking, having its own chains and ghost, whatever they call it, kitchens and so on and so forth, dark kitchens. So I'm saying, what's your long-term idea, series of ideas? What's your starting point idea? And how do they correlate with each other and drive you towards profitability and most importantly, sustainability? Flipkart finally had to launch games to